All right, we are in YellBRo Dark. Yes. And we're going to be discussing the ego and conditioning. I'm probably going to break these up into two different videos. So hopefully you're watching this one first, which is about the ego. And then you move on to the conditioning video. Well, because that's what's being conditioned. The ego. All right, so I try to start out with some type of definition or description or, you know, some type of thing I've observed about this, some sort of description about it. Uh, Now, I would call the ego as the psychological aspect, or yes, a particular aspect of the mind. Right? It's not the whole mind, but it's a particular aspect of the mind that serves the role of, well, many things. But I would call it a gatekeeper between your inner world and the outer world, meaning it negotiates all of that content. So your emotions and uh, even things like intuition, subconscious, your shadow, all these things are playing on the ego at the same time that all the external content like stimuli, your actual own body, right? Ideas and concepts from outside the world, language, all those things, numbers. It's also negotiating those. And what I would say is that what it wants to do is kind of separate everything in order to order everything. I think that's what like the best function of it would be. Uh, so the ego is, or okay. So with incoming with the ego being, I guess you could say, born in the psyche through, like I said, both the external and internal, both of them playing a role, which creates the ego. Then the ego wants to make a distinction between things. It wants to negotiate them. It wants to make separations of these things in order to understand them, in order to use them. Right? So it wants to understand the concept of left and right, so there needs to be a separation between left and right, or time, space, or all these things, right? And what I think it's best served for is taking the things you experience on an external level, absorbing it, and then your deeper full self wants to attach, uh, feelings or, my real thoughts about this, or, even deeper thoughts about this, or trying to relate to it, or whatever. Uh, and the ego is very, 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 in my opinion, important. I'm not one of the types that say you need to transcend your ego. No, no, I do not think that. I think the ego has to become ingratiated with the deeper aspects of yourself, right? It just can't take your ego and force it to stay up in the most shallowest realm of the mind. It needs to kind of integrate with the deeper, darker internal things, or brighter too. And the way the ego does that is by being a part of it as opposed to separating itself, which just seems to be like a bigger problem, you know, in society nowadays, in my opinion, right? To where something like depression, sadness, or feeling like some sort of something like I can't get rid of this feeling. It's like, oh, that's just chemicals. You need to fix the chemicals in your body in order to fix, you know, your conscious experience. It's like, maybe the ego should be quiet, that it can absorb content from the inner world. And that's how this, in my mind at least, translates. Hey, Dubster Brian. This is where the biggest problem I think we'll see when I translate this into the political realm. Why this is so important there. It's important for everyday life, but obviously in the political realm, this is a big, big, big deal to me, which is why I bring it up so much. Maybe I can just add conditioning in right now. I don't know. I think I can get away with that. Might do that. Okay, so the ego negotiating external content, your inner world internal content, whether you like it or not, that is happening. I know we like in an illusionary way, put a blocker between the ego and maybe deeper aspects or repressed memories or forgotten memories or feelings or your subconscious, like in the dream realm, like where where the mind is kind of at when you're dreaming and all that stuff. It's not actually separate. It's playing a role on the ego. It is definitely being expressed in the ego. And a problem people can run into is when they purposely, put up blockers to those things. At first, it's defensive, right? Usually some sort of trauma or something like that. But sometimes the ego defenses creates this wall between the darker aspects of themselves and the conscious mind. And what ends up happening is they continuously have to repair that wall because there's always things, the world, experience, nature, whatever you want to call it, is chipping away at that wall constantly. Because I think somewhere deep down, everyone, like people would want the truth about themselves, about the world, about anything. Like, I'll take the absolute truth of it. And sometimes the ego does not want to go down that route. So it builds up walls from your deeper, darker aspects. Even does it externally as well. But that's just a reflection of your inner, darker aspects. Uh, it's something like, I think, I don't know, you may think, here goes my speaker. You may think of yourself like, fuck, like, man, I'm ugly. People do that. They think of themselves as ugly. I've done that. Where you think of yourself as ugly and you put up, essentially, you look externally and put up blockers to certain things. Like if you're, whatever, you see a cute girl or a cute guy or whatever you're into, right? You're like, man, I can't approach them. I'm ugly. Like you just put a block up out here because of a block up you have in here. These things reflect. And the ego is just like it's dancing between the worlds or sitting at the pinnacle between both worlds. That thing needs to be developed. And the only real way to develop it is to ingratiate it with the rest of the mind, which means it has to go shh, quiet. Not dead, quiet, even though I do have a notion of ego death. I'm talking about the process, like I'm talking about with the hero's journey, where you walk into the deeper aspects, not being pulled, screaming and kicking, but the actual walk, that Siddhartha road, that darker path, the road less traveled, the hero's journey. When you walk, that's when that's when I'm talking about in regards to the ego being quieter. Hey, Mariana. Mary. Oh. But but I'm just rambling now to like add time to the video or something. That's what it feels like. But there's this concept. It's so dynamic. There's so many factors, examples, descriptions. For me, based on what I believe in, it's really incredible how important I think the ego is in regards to us dealing with the world and with ourselves. Uh, and it's kind of paradoxical because, well, all right, I'll get into that when I bring up conditioning. But I don't know, what else do I add to this? Things like time, things like space. Well, time and space are like one basically. Uh, based on your perception. Uh, geez, making separations between objects, concepts of objects, uh, conditioning, obviously, some very important conditioning that you need. Some you don't. Some you can break, but a lot of conditioning that you do need. Uh, and also for fun. Well, obviously for fun, like the existential aspect, to be able to express yourself in the world, to have an actual representative of you in the world. That's what the work done on like that's why that's so fucking important. And you need yourself for anything you want to do, anything you want to navigate in this world. You want the best possible, version of it. You have to be yourself while you're doing these things. Whether it's something you enjoy for fun, like, do you really enjoy this? Yeah, I do. Oh, there. Here you go. Simple. How about politics? Your ideas, but the real reason for your ideas, right? The moral drive. The ego should be in touch with that. Otherwise, you're probably gonna. Well, you could fuck up with efficiency regardless, but at the same time, when you do that, you keep your eyes open for if something is better than that idea that you came up with. Right? We've seen this talked about before with Medicare for all. Right? There's an idea, I think it's good, and I have a moral drive to do good. Right? Medicare for all from the outside, will to do good on the inside. And they meet in the ego. And then it's contemplated on in the ego. But the whole point is to do your best to do good. If it's some other idea surpasses it, or if you see something nefarious about the idea, or whatever, bam, it gets changed or replaced or argued about, on and so forth, because the point is to do good. That needs to be in the ego. Conceptually, not just, woo woo energy shit, but also conceptually, like, I'm trying to do right thing based on what I understand to be the right thing. Like I said, there's a lot of important shit with the ego. And hopefully my description could help you understand more of what I mean by it. Let me give like a simple thing. I'll say this, then I'll end it. Okay. You're watching the video. Try this. Close your eyes and figure out. I wanted to give like a math equation. Something that'll make you think. Oh. Close your eyes and spell your name. Not out loud, in your head. Don't dox yourself though. Keep it in your head. Spell your name out. Letter for letter. Maybe even visualize the letters. That is your ego doing that. I don't know what other way, like as far as like that will always take precedence over like any type of definition. Once you like actually just see what it is, now you can sit and observe it. Like, well, okay, where else does this thing play some sort of role at? Right? Could it be observing but not really talking? And observe it. Can I observe it observing things? On and so forth. So I guess throw that in there with all the description and functionality that I think the ego is all about. And yeah, cool. There's my ramble. I'll end it there. Don't forget to subscribe if you like, comment, agree, disagree. Do you have a different definition? Some people have like a biological notion of it, that it's in the brain and it's when animals can have some sort of perception of themselves. I disagree. I think animals also have an ego, but just not as developed as a human ego. Don't forget to share, support, hopefully donate to all the links in the description box. Devon's Journey to Recovery, helping victims of Africom, Cohen Daly, the Australian boy. Also, from content creators, Stevie, aka Red Economics, happy birthday. Sleepy J, Buy Him a Coffee, and optionally, Ali Alexandra. All links in the description box. So all that said, give this video a thumbs down.